Okay, so one of the biggest changes that is happening next year at Lincoln is going to be a full implementation of standards-based learning in terms of standards-based reporting, standards-based learning, standards-based assessment, the whole thing. So at Lincoln, it's been kind of like a 5-year process where the assessment team started reading literature and doing case studies and starting to do literature reviews and kind of find the gurus in assessment, because we were finding that we were becoming really, really frustrated with the idea of giving students one grade for everything that they had learned. So what we've kind of done over the last 5 years is we've started to adopt all these different practices about more student-centered assessment policies. So things like compliance or behavior issues like late work or organization or not turning the poster in the way that in the best way or has enough glitter, or those types of things we've kind of teased out of what we want our grades to represent. And then as we kept going through this process, we kind of realized that there were a few areas about the grade that we were really concerned with. So the first one was that, especially in the older students, kids were signing up for, it would come time to sign up for classes, and we'd go into our classrooms and a kid would say, oh, I'm really interested in environmental studies or environmental science, but I'm not really a science person, and what if I get a bad grade? I'm not going to take that class. So that was a frustration, because as teachers we want kids to take risks and we want them to follow their passions, even if it's not something that they know they're really good at. That's what high school's all about. So that was a frustration. We were also frustrated by the fact that, when we would hand a kid an essay back and it would have a lot of great feedback, the first question that they'd have back is, oh, is it an A now?
Yeah.
Okay, well, here's some more feedback. Well, is it an A now? Yeah, no, just look at the feedback. Is it an A now? And so they were so focused on the grade that they were forgetting the whole process of learning.
Yeah.
So that was a frustration. The other frustration was we were having college reps come in from all over the world, and they were sitting down with us, and they were basically saying, your grades are really meaningless, because what an A means at Lincoln School and what an A means in a local school in Nepal and what an A means in Chicago and what an A means in Germany are so different that when you send your grades in to me, we recalculate them anyway. So the whole scheme here is that, well, we have to give grades because kids need grades to do in college, and it's like, if the colleges are saying it's a system that doesn't work, then we really need to think about restructuring. So this last year, we brought in Heather as our consultant to kind of do our last little push, and what we've decided to do is condense all of our standards, all of our learning objectives into reportables. And so the reportables are kind of the major headings or the ideas that we constantly kind of reassess in our classes. And so we broke down all those standards, we compressed them into 6 to 10 reportable headings. So in my class, there are things like developing and answering questions, evaluating sources, communicating knowledge and taking action. Those are 3 of my reportable headings. And so at each grade level that I teach, I had to write what that heading means, because obviously what they're learning in like Spanish 6 and what they're learning in Spanish 8 are going to be a little bit different. So we created this system of reportables, and then we created a new proficiency scale. So we are getting rid of the A through F scale, the sorting students and just the academic stuff, and we created a proficiency scale using the words exemplary, meeting, beginning, and approaching. Beginning comes first and then approaching. So for each one of those headings next year, the kid will get one of those levels of mastery awards next to it instead of an A. And the whole goal is that we don't want to compress and average everything into one grade anymore. Because let's say you come into my class and you fail your first 2 tests, but you do really great on the next 2 tests over the same learning objectives. Right now, I have to bring those together and you get a C. Even though you're demonstrating your knowledge now, that first test is still going to hurt you, and it kind of rots away. So they get an individual level of proficiency for each one of those different skills to the class. That was kind of the big push. What we did was we had to get, obviously, the community on board. And we had to really think about, what do we do for our Korean families? And what do we do with our Nepali families? And what do we do with the Indian families? Because when they do go to their schools, they're going to need that GPA, right? They're going to need stamps and a GPA and all those things. So we had town hall meetings where we went into our parents' homes, basically. They let us into their homes. And we talked them through the process. And then we thought the best way to combat those things is to create a grade conversion chart. So Ms. Farish created a grade conversion chart that basically says, if they get this many exemplaries, it's this. If they get this many meetings, it's this. And we'll convert that all into a grade if they need it.
Yeah, I mean, one other thing even, I'm more curious, and I just want like your suggestion.
Yeah.
You, like how do you suggest me? One of the thing, what I learned in my program is regarding the standards.
Yeah.
So what I have learned in my program is we don't make standards. So there are like standards, for example, now we're moving into NGSS standard for science, and basically you have to follow the standards, and you make your lesson plan or your learning objectives for the lesson based on that standard. You
Right.
basically unwrap the standards.
You have to unpack them.
Unpack them.
Yep.
But what I've also heard when Heather was here, she also suggested like you can make standards. So I was like kind of confused
Here's what
because
that means. So, like
Because-
in a social studies classroom, we're adopting C3 standards next year. And some of the very like content specific learning objectives are very American based.
yes,
So those aren't applicable,
Yeah.
right? So I cut that stuff and I kind of retweak it to make it more internationally based. I think what Heather was trying to say was that, and I've actually had this conversation with Ms. Farish too, because sometimes we have such specific standards
yeah.
that you might only hit one time. Like she was saying something about some very specific
We-
model that you
yeah.
have to do. Create a heading in your reportables where all those ones kind of go into.
And also, I mean, especially following that NGSS standard.
Yeah.
And I'm talking specifically about chemistry. There are technically, they call core objectives.
Right, project, yeah.
Yeah. Which has got technically just 2 core values for chemistry.
Right.
And you're teaching, say, a whole year course for chemistry, and then if anyone takes AP, then we have like another year.
Another, yeah.
So in a way, like that's why just following the standards given in the NGSS, we cannot develop a curriculum for 2 years course.
Right.
So
Yeah.
that's why like I have been talking to Miss Iris, and I have been looking at her work, and she also gets some feedback from me making those reportables.
Totally.
Yeah.
I think the one that we decided that some of those really specific ones were going to be under communicating knowledge. There's like a communicating scientific
Yeah.
understandings or communicating scientific knowledge. And so we decided that communicating scientific knowledge can mean a lot of different things,
Yeah.
right? And so the goal of the heading is for reassessment. So if you can put those kind of specific ones where they have to create a model or do a design or those type of things under the heading communication, then I think that will kind of work.
And the other thing is, say, I mean, we've been taking like formative assessment, which
Yeah.
is like regular, in my teaching practice also, I've been using different forms of formative assessment, which could be a formal formative assessment as well as informal, just asking questions.
Yeah,
Looking at their independent work in the class,
Yeah,
just
yeah.
going around and checking. But the other concern is sometimes, like, because they have been more used to the traditional way of giving the letter grades, and even if you try to give feedback, they,
Uh-huh.
as you said, they always come like,
They just want
what would be this in terms of like letter grades, because they're more used to that system. And also, I mean, for most of the majority, say if you have a lab work or if there's like a big project,
yeah,
generally we've been using rubric for that.
yeah,
But if I take, say, end of the unit test, and yes, because generally in the beginning of unit, I always say learning goals for the
yeah,
unit,
yeah, yeah.
which is based on the standards. And the questions are also actually based on that, and I can say that question number 1 is covering
This-
those 3 standards.
Exactly, yep,
And all. But if I have to say, because sometimes like kids, if they're not happy with the grade they receive, maybe
Yeah.
they might think they have already reached the meeting, and then if I say like beginning or approaching, so
they're confused.
yeah. So how do you suggest for me so that I can talk to kids? Because in later years I can say, I mean, like we've been saying, like because you messed up this thing here,
Yeah.
that's why like here's your grade.
Yeah,
And sometimes like our perspective of looking at it,
yes,
and
the
their
perception.
perspective,
Perception is a huge issue.
Yeah.
So, couple things. One is I just read an article. So typically, 2 things. I just read an article that really clarified rubrics for me, and also at the NISA Bangkok Leadership Conference that I was at, I went to a ton of meetings on assessment. And what I felt that I was doing with my rubrics is like drowning kids in like what the rubric says. Like I was writing so many things on the rubric that they weren't even reading them.
yeah.
So I read this great article called "Your Rubric is a Hot Mess, Here's How to Fix It." And basically, what I've started doing, and I've started doing this at the beginning of the units, and then with each assignment that I do, I list just what the meeting is. So it's a 3-tiered rubric, and it says not meeting, meeting, more than meeting. And I break down the content for meeting, but then I also break down the analysis. So in yours, it might be the content and the process, or the content and the skill, or whatever it is. In my class, you have to be constantly analyzing. So I list like the facts and the dates and the places and the names and all the content that they're going to need to meet whatever it is, and then I write exactly what they're going to have to do to create their own conceptual understanding. What are you going to have to critique? What are you going to have to evaluate? What are you going to have to include? What kind of perspectives? And I hand them that at the beginning of the unit as kind of the learning goals over what the standards are going to be and kind of what the end goal is. And then I have them do kind of like a self-assessment.
Which
Yes.
is
What do I want
based on
them
the
to
skill,
know?
knowledge, and then what they can achieve.
Totally.
So basically, I have like 3 things there.
So what
Knowledge,
I would just
application.
break those down and hand them to the kids on day 1.
No, I generally do that.
Yeah.
I make the list of the learning goals,
Yeah.
and I have been like trying to emphasize on that. Whenever they have a test, instead of like in the past in math class and all, the teachers with whom I work, they used to give a review packet.
Yeah.
So I changed that, and because in a way I also feel like they're in high school, so they should also be prepared to go into college.
Totally.
So what I did is they have all resources they can use,
Uh-huh.
but they have the learning goals, and based on the learning goals, they have to come to a
Create your
test.
own review.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, that's
So
great.
That's what I'm trying to emphasize.
Do you ever try to like the other thing that I really took away from the NISA conference was I sat in a session about formative assessment, and one of the things that really helped me was oftentimes we think that when we're assessing it's like a verb. So like you have to stop, everything stops, you assess, and then you go back to teaching. And he was like, you don't have to stop. Assessment can be seamless. Assessment can be, it should just be happening. And the other piece of it was that your formative assessment then should drive your instructional choices. So if you get all this feedback back and, Logan over here, or Shree over here, or so-and-so over here, they're missing this, they're missing this, they're missing this, you have to use it to drive your individual instruction.
That's why also I've been using
Yeah.
after saying the learning goals,
Yeah.
what I also do generally before beginning of the unit, I take a diagnostic test and I make it clear because kids are
They
always
freak out.
concerned about the grade when they
Yeah,
do this
yeah,
test,
yeah.
and I generally make it clear to them that it's not for your grading. This will give me an idea of where you
It's for
exactly
me.
stand,
Yeah.
and based on that, I can also differentiate class, and then because I have already in my mind like kids who is planning to AP next year,
Right.
and who is just so. One of the learning goal was they should be able to predict the equation or chemical equation for acid reactions of acids.
Okay.
And we have like a wide range of kids in the same class. Some of them
Yes.
they can easily do it.
Totally.
So what I did is like after like basic introduction to that unit, I have like different worksheets, and in a way, I said like this is the worksheet where you don't get any scaffolding or any
Yeah.
kind of probe for the, and then I also developed another cheat sheet where they have a general reaction pattern where they can use and predict the
And kinda-
reaction, and the other students like they should be able to write, and there was like some like challenging question which demanded for like application of the reactions of acid. Even in the test, how I did is they were like a regular question, and
Yeah.
when I made different learning goals, it started with like easiest question and
Levels
then
of
they would go
difficulty.
for it.
Yeah.
And I put like a strict mark, and I said that's not a bonus question for which you get extra credit, but if you're thinking of taking AP, just try to do those
Yeah,
questions.
see if you can apply it.
Yeah.
No, that's great.
Yeah, so
The other thing I've really tried to do to help with student perception issues is conferencing, which is hard because when I do like these types of things, when I do the differentiated tasks, I kind of float around for a little bit, and then that's when I try to do the conference. So then I have the rubric out with the learning objectives and like 1-minute conferences. Okay, let's sit down, show me a piece of work where you feel like you've met the standard here, or verbalize your understanding here. Okay, you kind of missed this is really great, and then they hand that back.
yeah, I also did. Not the same way you did, but
Yeah.
Before the unit test or end of the unit summative assessment, what I did is like they had the learning goal, and then they have to come up with me.
Yeah.
So what I said, like you can use 3 different kind of colors, basically traffic light color.
Yeah.
The areas that you have like more confidence, put green,
Yeah.
and red to the area you don't have any understanding, so you need a review and assistant.
No, that's
And then
great.
like yellow, where if you try, you can do it. So
Totally.
that's how they did it.
Yeah.
I think not everyone in the class, but most of them use like.
They were realistic, yeah. Sometimes you're just not gonna get everybody. Or sometimes you have a kid
sometimes-
that's like, why did you, yeah, no, it's okay, that just happens.
Yeah. Right.
Yeah, you got a good plan going on. I think the thing that I've learned is the more face-to-face time I can get with each kid, the
Yeah.
better.
That's true. I mean,
And that's so hard to plan all the time, but
Yeah.
if you can create like a system or a structure where the kids are working independently or collaboratively and you can pull them up just for like 1 to 2 minutes, it's
and
so
that's why,
good.
I mean, you know, like just to, because like, especially the teacher-led instruction time, I mean, it's the age, you know, like,
Yeah.
they always not very attentive and all. So what I do is like, just to grab their attention also, I keep asking questions so that
Yeah.
everyone is always ready there and I can pick any question, and depending on whom I choose, when I pick, you know, the question, difficulty level of the question is also different.
Right, it's different, of course, yeah. And I think the more that you reduce, like at my last school, I really felt like I was like the ringleader, like I was the circus ringleader. So it was me in front of like this crowd and I was orchestrating everything. And then I realized the more that I can just be a facilitator of learning and not the person with all the knowledge, the better.
Yeah.
If the kids can get to those understandings in their own way and with me helping them instead of saying, I have all the knowledge and I will
Yeah.
tell you the knowledge, the
That is
more you
true,
can get there,
but-
the better.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, I also always considered myself in a class as a facilitator of learning.
Yeah,
And I tried that also, and it's not like I have stopped trying.
Yeah.
But sometimes with the content knowledge of the chemistry,
it's hard.
it is kind of hard. You know, like I tried that one and tried to differentiate the classroom where they have with different things.
Right? Because
Yeah.
sometimes they're just like, I don't know what a C means. So all of that was really great. Of course, there was the concern about college. Once we gave them the grade, once they saw the grade conversion chart, all of those anxiety areas went away. They just wanted to know that if they were applying to a more traditional program, that we would still be able to meet those needs. And once they saw that we were, really the anxiety went away. And the idea that they were going to be more involved instead of just getting these papers that said, you know, the learning has already happened and here's where your kid is at. They can't help their kid, right? The test was 2 weeks ago.
Yeah.
The test was a month ago. I'm reporting on it now. The fact that now they're going to be getting more real-time feedback and more real-time communication, they're really excited about that.
But one thing, this is like maybe on the same topic or maybe could be a little bit off
Yeah.
topic. So as long as I know that we are going to give 2 formal reports back
Yeah.
here.
Yeah.
And what about, is there any way that they can also go through like the progress throughout the year, so like waiting for that
Yes.
particular time of the year? To get-
So what we're thinking about doing is opening up PowerSchool, but not into our grade books, okay? So what we were thinking is that what if, here's what parents want to know. They want to know if an assignment is missing, if an assignment is late, and how I can take the feedback that the teacher is giving to make improvements on assignments. So we were thinking, what if you could open up PowerSchool to show the kind of bigger assignments that are being worked on, and let's